Hey guys, I thought I'd do a more formal update on the 49. I know I'm uploading a video to YouTube. I don't know what's wrong with me, but this deserves a bit of an update to everybody. I know there's some people out there following the project, made some pretty good progress, and just wanted to show you guys where things are at. So let's take a quick look. So if you saw my live stream the other day, you probably already know a lot of this, but I have done more work since then, including getting pretty much all the wiring and looms. Still got to attach this, do some routing. This is unfinished. This is the horn, which this car has a pair of trumpets, which are right over there. But for now, we've got it temporarily wired to the Trailblazer horns because they're not as loud. On 12 volts, those trumpets are unbearable. Of course, I've got working parking and turn signals now, which I've never had. For the battery, I went with, I had the old GTR battery laying around, and I used it as a mock-up, and I like the way that it fits. So that's what I went with. This is a, I think they call it a 51L or 51R series. So it has about 500 and change on cranking amps, and it'll be fine. I mean, there's really nothing on this car besides power locks, headlights, not very many lights at that, and the air pump in the back. So I think it'll be more than fine, and it fits really well. I just took the factory tray, I cut it down, relocated these, and this will go to a strap there to support that. Power steering, really good news on that. I actually was up at the store today and they pulled out a factory power steering hose, and I realized that I still had mine and that it might fit. So sure enough, I got it on the reservoir and it comes out on a hard line and goes back to rubber. Comes out right out the other line, so they're right together like they need to be to go to the cooler. So we're good there. Alright, so let me show you the cool part of this. I've got the 2008, maybe it's a 9, I don't even know the year anymore, it's been so long since I bought it. Trailblazer key fob, and if I want to lock, then we get that. And then if we want to unlock, then you get your courtesy lighting or convenience lighting. They come on and stay on for, I don't know, however long, a minute or so. So you can get to your car at night. I believe the reverse lights should also come on, but I don't have reverse lights yet. But I do have one ordered. I found a original in decent shape. It'll certainly be probably about like the car's condition, not anywhere near perfect, but good enough. And on the 49, it was an option, and it sits on that tray between the bumper and the body on one side. So I intend on wiring it just like that. I bought the brightest LEDs on the market that I could find that were the, whatever these are, 1156 or whatever. So it's a single contact. And these things, I'm going to tell you, they are bright. They're so bright that it really reminded me of looking at a welding flash. And I literally had spots in my eyes for probably 10 minutes just from very, very short time of looking at it. So hopefully it holds up. We'll do that. Nothing new back here, but I did get the tag lights working. And of course, if we use the fob, you see the confirmation. And I would assume, which I was going to test today but haven't had a chance, to look and see the reverse light will probably come on and give you convenience lighting to get to your vehicle. So that will be very cool. Now inside the car is where I've been working the last couple of days. I've spent just as much time looking at this and doing absolutely nothing as I have doing work, maybe even more, because I'm taking this Trailblazer harness and trying to make it reach and go to everything. You know, and also I've got to put carpet in here and seating. I got to make sure we don't have any crazy lumps that are going to give us a problem. So I'm thinking about taking this main harness, which has a spiral wrap of tape on it, maybe taking that tape off and letting it settle down flatter. I don't know. But in any case, it actually worked out pretty good. Coming down between the two pedals is where this is going to lay at. And then I just built a brake light relay circuit, and the reason I have to do this is on the Trailblazer, on this car, for cruise control you've got to have a cancel, and what they have is a triple contact brake pedal on the Trailblazer and this car has a single contact. The third set of contacts are for shift interlocks, so you have to push the brake to be able to come out of park. I'm not doing that, so we're forgetting those. In fact, I even repurposed one of those two wires for ground for the relay. So what we do is battery 12 comes into this at all times. You push it, it sends a signal to the BCM and the brake lights come on. And actually it might even bypass the BCM because they work under any condition. And then also that signal, when you push the brake, splits off, goes to the relay, which breaks the connection that is only powered during ignition on, and it goes back to the ECM, I think also to the BCM, and its primary function is to cancel cruise control. But I think there are other uses for it, such as if you have traction control, things like that. So that runs down through the old clutch cable hole, goes over to the brake light switch, which is on the outside. And if I push this, you hear the relay. That's the relay for canceling cruise control. And aside from the relay, we also have, it's amazing, I've got working brake lights. We're getting there. Now, the next hurdle, it's not even a hurdle, but we've got the switch for the bright lights. So that's going to be really easy. It's literally just two wires, and I go over to it, and they are sitting up here near the steering wheel harness. I checked, this steering wheel does not have a high beam switch in it, which is fine. I wanted to use the floor, I want to keep this car like it was. This actually worked out fine because, you know, if you do have it, you might be inclined to use it and it's the wrong one, but this uses the floor. I want to have that to confuse Generation Z. So the big problem I'm having right now to finish up the wiring is I've got an adapter harness somewhere in a box. I can't find it. They're about 30 bucks. So I guess I'm going to have to order another one. But I don't want to cut this harness, although I do have a salvaged factory plug out of the Trailblazer for something else. But it's only got six wires. And I believe this comes out to 8. I thought about using the horn on a separate plug, but I don't know. I think I prefer it to be on one. I think it would be cleaner. So I may just have to wait. It's the horn, it is turn signals and emergency flashers, none of which I really need that bad, you know, in the next few days. So I'm going to probably wait. I've also started working on getting the wiring for the dome light. But in addition to that, they also sent the tail lights this way, and we're not using any of that anymore. So I really need to pull this old cloth wire. It's in bad shape. And there was actually a short up in here, and I actually blew a fuse a couple of times messing with the wires. So I need to pull this headliner out, run brand new wire to the dome light, and then I'll have the cool courtesy dome lights and all that good stuff. So as it works out, this is the dash harness. So you've got cigarette lighter plugs, radio power, air conditioning power, some things like that. That really worked out great. It splits right off. It's going to run right up across here and then shoot up behind the air conditioning to get power to everything. This goes to the rear fuse and the BCM. And probably the most difficult project has been the door wiring, which I thought I was out of the woods with it, but unfortunately they have an actual control module, which is also known as the power window switch. It's a pretty good size little device. I don't think it'll fit in here. It might. I hope it will. Otherwise I'm going to hack it up because I'm not doing power windows, but I do want to have power door locks, and I certainly want dome light control. And unfortunately it's all done through the serial connection and not through a direct wire to the BCM. So I'm going to have to get those integrated somewhere up in here, hopefully. Worst case, I'll put them inside the door, but I don't want to run all the wires. So anyway, I ordered aftermarket or retrofit 5-wire door locks. That way I won't have to have a switch. I'll actually be able to just push and pull on the lock, and it'll unlock or lock both sides, as well as the key fob will do it. Hopefully this is all going to work. It's going to require cutting into the factory Trailblazer power window switch and the power door lock switch, wiring that 5-wire into that. I'll need some luck. Worst case scenario, if that doesn't work, I will just go to a manual system basically that I can tie into the output from the remote. I'll make it work one way or another, but I think I'll get this working. And then you got the other side. I know there's a lot of stuff here. There's a small set of wires that runs diagonally. Those are now taped down. Those are going to go under the carpet, of course. That is for the passenger side door control module. You see a ground over there as well that I put in, and that will control both the dome light as well as power door lights when we get to that point. This is your Trailblazer dash. Just want to show you that it all works now. We put the key in, turn it on, everything lights up. We get our miles, our trip odometer. Trip 81. So we're going to be starting out right around 82,000 miles on this setup. And the best thing is, we are now cranking. We're literally a fuel system away from this thing being alive. And air conditioning is literally just barely hanging in there. I've got the brackets that I built, but they're not even tightened up yet. They're just in there. I've got wiring. I've got controls to figure out. It's not a high priority. I can just put the control down on the floor, and even if I don't have air conditioning, it's not going to stop it from driving. But I do need to tie in the heater to get the coolant hoses in there and done. But this should go pretty fast, hopefully. We'll see how it goes, though. Got a long ways to go on that. So the air ride is, is hooked up in terms of the controls, the control board, the remote, all that good stuff. But I'm powering it currently off of this whenever I hook this up. Right now it's disconnected. But it needs to be tied into the car. And that basically just means hooking up the ignition power, the battery power, and the ground. And then it's mounted. And the lines are in decent shape. I've got a little air leak up front somewhere. I've got to figure that out. I got a feeling that's going to be an endless thing on this car, and it's probably going to ultimately drive me to hate it. But I hope that I can get it where it's not too bad. But this power for the compressor has a 50 amp fuse, and the rear fuse block has 125 amps of service coming to it. So I don't see why I cannot power it off of that lug, and it shouldn't be a problem. I mean, there's really nothing. We've got the body control module is powering up a radio, I guess the headlights and some LED tail lights and some power door locks and an air conditioner. So, with a 50 amp fuse, this thing probably pulls 30 on a good, a good run. So I'm going to try it. Worst case, it blows the 125 amp fuse, and I'll have to replace that and run a wire all the way to the front. But I believe there's a pretty substantial wire coming back, and this wire is not long enough to reach the front. That means a splice. That means a whole bunch of extra effort. So we're going to try to do it the easy and lazy way. And then the last thing is the radio. So I've got this little Bluetooth amp and the speakers that I've built a box that fits in the factory dash speaker location. So the only variable is getting the amp mounted, and it's pretty tight under here, and there's nothing to attach anything to. So really the only bolts you have are a couple of braces. Then you have the dash under the bottom of the dash, and then you've got the bolts that go out to the hinges for the hood. And I think the most logical thing is to build a plate that goes under one of those bolts to the hood hinge and attach whatever to those plates. So that's how I'm planning on mounting the amp, is over in that corner behind the glove box. That way I can get to it easier. Option B would be to mount it somewhere around the back of the radio, but that radio is huge, and in order to take it out you have to drop it down. So anything behind it would stop that from being possible. So anyway, nothing that matters to get it driving, but clearly we are getting close to starting this thing up, and we're really just about a set of brakes away and a radiator away from driving it down the road. So I'm pretty excited, but I'm also very concerned about what kind of problems are going to come up with this new setup, particularly with the proximity of the giant engine right behind the radiator, which is going to obstruct airflow a bit. And I'm just hoping the spout fan will do its job and keep this thing cool enough to be with good manners. So I've got a couple of options on the upper radiator hose. This is, I don't even know what this is off of, actually. I thought it was off the Trailblazer because it fits, but I think it's actually not. But in any case, it's actually 1 3/16, but I found a 1 1/4 neck that seems to fit reasonably well. It's a little bit looser than I'd like, but I think it's within the tolerance of the good hose clamp. So one option that I have is to come out of the radiator with a 90. So basically cut this off and weld this in where it sits back like that. That's kind of what I'm planning to do, but I'm going to take this hose today and I'm going to see if I can find a hose at the automotive store that has the same basic shape, that has two sizes, one that fits this end and one that fits the radiator hose, which is whatever size a standard small block Chevy would use on the upper hose. So I guess maybe we'll get lucky, find one. I really don't feel like cutting that and welding that, and if I bring it to somebody, it's probably going to take 2 weeks for them to get to it, and I shouldn't really be doing it myself, but I'll try. And finally, the lower radiator hose, if you want to call it that, because on the Trailblazer it's more of a middle hose. It's right there below the alternator, comes out at a very unfortunate angle, and I really need to make a pretty fast 180 with it, go behind the engine mount, but staying clear of the steering shaft, cross over between the oil pan and the cross member, possibly do that with metal, and then come forward and go into the lower radiator hose, which is going to be right in this area around these power steering lines. So that's going to be, I don't know, I'm a little bit stressed over the lower hose. I know I can get something that'll work, but to make it clean and where it's not going to have some wear on it that's going to cause a hole in it, it's going to take some work to get it mounted and secured because it's so long. But I don't want to have a bunch of crazy hardware that are doing that. So hopefully we'll come up with a solution for it sooner than later, because that's pretty important to driving it. As soon as I get the wiring done inside, I will be addressing those things. All right, and so the Firebird, this is not my car, this is actually Melissa's car. It's been sitting for longer than this car has by a good bit. So yeah, it had, we just replaced the tires. Well, we've got two to put on the back. Those are the old back tires and wheels. Those were too wide. They were getting into the quarter panel and the bump stop. So we went ahead and went to a square setup with 275/40s. I moved the fronts to the back and put the new ones on the front. Took it for about a 200-foot drive. It's like being on ice because those tires are 15 years old and they're harder than the concrete they're sitting on. But it did seem to respond good, so hopefully we'll have minimal issues. I'm expecting some leaks to develop because it's been sitting, it gets ran every few months, but it has not been really driven, so who knows what's going to go wrong. But I'm definitely looking forward to starting to drive this. We're going to go from no cars for the last 4 years to 2 cars pretty fast, and potentially, if this thing behaves and it sticks around, 3 cars, which will be pretty crazy. We'll have to pick which one to drive. And speaking of the Iroc, would you believe these brand new tires that have less than 150 miles on them, with the brand new ETs back there that have not even been driven that far, are 2017 tires. So they are turning 5 this year, which really sucks. Now they've been inside, no real exposure to sunlight or weather, but I just don't like the idea of going the kind of speeds that this car is capable of doing anywhere near that with old tires. So unfortunately, I'm probably going to be, I may go a year with these tires, but that's it. I'm not, my life is not worth saving a little bit of money. And I don't like the idea of a blowout on a car like this. So, some people might go longer. Those were 15, but I stop generally at 5.5 or so. That's about my limit. So hopefully they were a late 17 tire. That's what I'm hoping. Anyway, I did take the turbo blanket off, anticipating pulling off the headers and seeing if I can get these trued up. If I can get these, you know, to really be sealed with no leaks and no special gaskets, that would go a long ways towards me trying to troubleshoot the car and, you know, keep it. She's 35. In Gen 1, how many Gen 1 Irocs are left around that are hopped up, you know? I don't know. Maybe an LS will never find its home in here, particularly since we now have an LS in the household. So, I don't know. We'll see what happens. All right, well, this video is already way too long because I don't even upload to YouTube anymore. And here I am doing it. So, I'll get out of here. Catch you guys some other time.